9 Sinister Rules at a Haunting Louisiana Target Store Revealed, the Terrifying Secrets Exposed. The night wrapped around the Target store like a suffocating shroud. Veronica shuffled down the dim aisle, her hands trembling slightly as she restocked the shelves. Shadows flickered and curled, whispering of stories long buried. She paused, hearing the echo of a plastic bag crumpling. Was it just her imagination? Or was it something more sinister? The word sinister carried a weight here, and it felt like the very air carried the chill of warning. She had heard the tales whispered among the townsfolk since Mia was small. A predatory figure lurking in darkness, waiting to ensnare those who wandered too far into the night. As a single mother, Veronica had dismissed such fears as mere folklore. But now, working the night shift at this desolate store, with only the soft hum of the fluorescent lights and deepening shadows for company, she felt the stories crawling back into her mind, settling in like unwanted guests. While organizing the clearance rack, something scraped against her hand. A crumpled piece of paper. She unrolled it cautiously. In jagged scrawl, it read, 9 Sinister Rules. A quick rush of panic swelled in her chest. Each lined rule outlined the horror stories she thought were just noise, stories of things that crept through the void. Don't walk home alone, it said. Beware the whispers. As she read, the store seemed to darken, the flickering overhead lights beginning to strobe, casting wild shadows that danced mockingly around her. A suffocating silence fell, making the very walls feel alive, pulsating with an unseen heartbeat. Her heart raced. Every creak echoed like a call to something lurking nearby. She could swear she heard faint whispers, like voices just beyond comprehension, floating through the air. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Anxiety clawed at her throat. She thought of Mia. The girl sometimes wandered in, carefree, hungry for her favorite snacks. What if one of those sinister rules applied to her? Panic surged anew. Images of her daughter laughing echoed. What if the night snatched Mia away before she had a chance to come home? The lights flickered violently, nearly plunging the store into darkness. Shadows took on life, flitting between aisles, swirling around equipment left behind, chasing each other like lost spirits. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes on her, and the air turned acidic. She had to protect Mia. She had to leave this haunted place, but as she approached the exit, a sound stopped her. A low, haunting chuckle reverberated through the empty aisles, a cruel taunt that chilled her blood. Desperation washed over her. As she turned back, her eyes landed on the checkout counter, where Mia's favorite snack lay abandoned. The store was alive, and it felt hungry for something. The shadowy whisper echoed in her mind. The night hides monsters. It mocked her fears. Was it referring to Mia or to the terror lurking just behind her? Each heartbeat was a countdown as she faced the growing dread. Unraveling the truth might save them both, but where did the danger really lie? She had to choose, confront the lurking horror or leave with her daughter's future uncertain. Veronica's heart pounded in her chest as the chuckle echoed through the store. It was a sound that felt alive, as though it were feeding off her fear. She turned on her heel, eyes darting between the shadowy aisles, searching for a figure, anything that could give shape to the terror creeping into her mind. Stay focused, she whispered to herself, clutching the paper with the rules tight in her fist. The last thing she needed was to spiral into panic. She had to think of Mia. The thought of her daughter, innocent and unaware of the lurking horrors, propelled her into motion. The store felt vast and suffocating as she hurried past rows of merchandise, each aisle swallowing her in darkness. Once, the fluorescent lights hummed with a comforting buzz, but now they flickered ominously, quickening her pulse. What was it Mia had said about her favorite snack? What if it's haunted? The memory twisted in her gut, now more than a playful quip. Veronica moved toward the back of the store, where the lights were dimmest and the shadows gathered thick like smoke. Something rustled in the corner, a stack of boxes, perhaps. She halted, breath caught in her throat. The rustling stopped abruptly, replaced by a silence that pressed down on her ears. "Hello?" she called, voice trembling. It was absurd, calling into the void, but she couldn't help it. Was it just the store settling? Or was something waiting for her response? The air felt charged, as though every whisper of the night was listening, waiting for her to break. Suddenly, the lights above her burst back to life, illuminating the rear aisles with a harsh glare that stung her eyes. In that moment, she saw movement, a dark figure dancing near the end of the row, just outside her line of sight. It flickered like a dying bulb, but she was sure it was there. Her breath hitched. If she kept moving, would it follow? Or was it a trap meant to lure her deeper? Searching for an escape, she turned back toward the checkout area where she had last seen the snack. If Mia had come in, it would make sense to find her there. But as she reached the edge of the aisles, the dying flutter of the lights returned, plunging her into shadow again. The foil of a snack wrapper glimmered under her gaze, so surreal amidst the encroaching darkness. Barely ambling toward the counter, she noticed something strange. The scanner was lit up, its red light slicing through the thick blackness. With fingers trembling, she tapped the counter, expecting the familiar digital display. Instead, it showed one haunting word: abandon. A chill snaked down her spine, stark and cold. Had Mia gone? Her mind raced with the implications of the rule that had so deeply unsettled her. Don't wander alone. The moment stretched, heavy and taut, dousing her in dread. She had to make a decision. She could run, bolt through the exit with hope she wouldn't look back. Or, she could confront whatever this was, whatever sought to tear them apart. A rush of adrenaline surged through her, fear mingled with resolve. With a last glance toward the dark aisle, the flicker of shadows drawing nearer, she whispered a silent prayer and pushed herself forward into the dark. What awaited her in the depths of the store? Did it seek her or her daughter? The very walls seemed to breathe, inhaling her panic and exhaling an unseen fate. She took a deep breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But as she stepped into the darkness, another voice joined the whispers, more persistent, more direct. Come find me, Mommy. And just like that, infinity hung in the air. What had she unleashed? Was it Mia? Or something worse? Veronica's heart raced as she stepped further into the darkness. The aisle stretched before her, an endless maw eager to swallow her whole. The voice, Mia's voice, echoed inside her mind, soft yet insistent. Come find me, Mommy. It was a call drenched in despair, riddled with an innocence that twisted her stomach. Where are you? She called out, her voice trembling. The silence that wrapped around her felt heavy, like a living thing, crawling along her skin. If Mia was here, she had to be close. Surely, she wouldn't have wandered far. The store had once felt comforting, bright and familiar, but now it was a labyrinth of shadows and malignant secrets. With her pulse thrumming like a drum, she navigated the stacked shelves, reaching out to brush her fingers against the cool metal of a shopping cart. The cart stood abandoned, rusting in the gloom, its wheels creaking softly like whispers of lost souls. Veronica shuddered and moved on, her eyes darting to the left where something caught her attention. A glimmer that a toy duck lay on the ground, its bright yellow body stark against the oppressive blackness. It looked strangely out of place. Had Mia dropped it? She knelt down, picking it up, feeling the plastic warmth in her palm. Mia? She whispered, hope flickering within her like a candle about to snuff out. Then she heard it, another chuckle, low and manic, echoing behind her. It curled around her ears and tightened her throat. This wasn't just a game anymore. Something, the darkness, was alive, watching her every move. Swallowing hard, she resumed her hurried pace, clutching the duck. I'm coming, Mia. She shouted, desperation clawing at the edges of her voice. Each step felt treacherous, her thoughts racing. Stay with me, sweetheart. Just stay with me. The path twisted, and the flickering lights overhead played tricks on her eyes, making shadows dance and writhe. It took a moment for her to notice the glowing red sign glowing defiantly at the end of the aisle. Candy. The picture of a smiling cartoon ghost on it sent chills down her spine. Mia loved candy. Was she drawn here? Veronica sprinted to the end, but the aisle felt longer than it should. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging her into darkness. Panic rose in her throat like bile. She fumbled for her phone, its soft light cutting through the gloom like a lifeline. In the brief illumination, she saw it, a black figure crouching at the edge of the aisle, its outline wavering as though it were made of shadows. Veronica's breath hitched, and she took a step back, heart pounding loudly in her ears. Mia. The whisper came out barely above a breath, filled with hope that instantly shattered like glass against dread. The figure moved, rising slowly to its full height. And then, it spoke in a voice that seeped into her bones, echoing with a sickening familiarity. You shouldn't have come alone. Veronica felt the ground beneath her tremble as if the store itself was convulsing, reacting to the dark entity looming before her. It held out a thin, skeletal hand, beckoning her closer. Something primal within her screamed to run, but her legs felt frozen, as if the air around her was thickening, wrapping around her, clamping down. The whispered chant of "Come find me," Mommy reverberated in her mind, mingling with the figure's sinister drawl. Don't you want to see your little girl? It urged, voice dripping with malice. A surge of panic snapped Veronica back to her senses. She bolted, racing past the figure, determination overpowering the icy grip of fear. Dropping the toy duck, she sprinted toward the flickering lights ahead, praying that it led her back toward Mia, back to safety. But as she neared the exit, she slowed, the door ajar with a haunting glow, and paused. Something felt off. With a sinking heart, she turned one last time, dread pooling in her stomach as she faced the darkness she'd just fled. But there was nothing there, only the whispering wind and the faint sound of Mia's laughter bouncing from the shadows. Mommy, come find me. And as she stood there, paralyzed by indecision, a new realization threatened to swallow her whole. Maybe Mia wasn't lost. Maybe the store had a far more sinister purpose, drawing both mother and daughter deeper into its cursed depths. What lay behind that door? Would it lead her back to Mia or deeper into the abyss? The flickering lights cast one final flicker, then went dark once again. Veronica's heart pounded fiercely against her ribcage as she stood frozen in place, the door to freedom slowly yawning before her. Shadows shifted, stretching like long fingers trying to reach her back into their eerie grasp. She had slipped away from the figure, but the haunting laughter of Mia echoed, pulling her deeper into the twisted aisles. Mommy, the voice called, innocent yet foreboding. She took one tentative step toward the door. Was it truly freedom, or a trap? Before she could decide, the lights overhead flickered again, and she gasped. It felt as if the darkness had come alive, vibrating with malevolence. With a shaky hand, she reached for the door, but the chill in the air made her hesitate again. Something was pushing against her, a density that wrapped around her throat, fear, regret, longing. She turned to the darkness once more. Mia! She cried out, an edge of desperation peeling away her resolve. No answer came, only the chuckle that danced through the air and slithered into her consciousness. It taunted her, wrapping itself around her thoughts until it became maddening. Each second felt infinite. Her breath came in sharp gasps as she stepped hesitantly into the darkness, feeling its tendrils tugging at her like an unseen force. The aisles loomed ominously, now filled with grotesque shadows that twisted into shapes that felt almost familiar. Had she passed this toy section before? Panic clawed at her gut. From somewhere deep within the store, a low thud reverberated, like the sound of a door slamming shut. Veronica felt the ground quake beneath her, and she stumbled, nearly falling into the abyss that surrounded her. Heart racing, she pushed on, the faint whisper of Mia guiding her, but the seductive pull of the darkness tugged at her mind. Mia! She shouted, her voice a fragile thread in the oppressive silence. She remembered Mia's bright smile, her love for candy, her joy. It felt like a lifeline, a memory to cling to in the consuming blackness. Drawing courage from her memories, she rounded a corner and stumbled into a toy aisle. Toys covered the floor, bright colors stark against the faded shelves, but the air was thick with the suffocating scent of decay. A chilling breeze swept through, pulling her towards the back of the store. There, the remnants of a clown statue lay scattered, its face cracked and twisted in a ghastly grimace. The laughter intensified, swirling around her, taunting. "Come play," it seemed to say. "Stop it!" she yelled, fighting the urge to succumb to madness. She squinted through the darkness, searching for any sign of her daughter, any flicker of hope. Her phone's light buzzed weakly, casting an eerie pallor on the room. A soft rustling behind her made her freeze. The shadows were moving. Her instincts screamed to run, to escape the unsettling sensations tingling on the back of her neck. Yet, she remained, transfixed by the chaos in the darkness. Suddenly, she heard it again, tiny footsteps. Her heart soared, but the joy quickly faded when she realized they weren't just the sound of Mia. Other small echoes followed, each step multiplying, growing, drowning out her hopes under a cacophony of whispers. "Mommy! Come find me!" The voice was a lure, echoing around her as more laughter erupted, filling the space with a sickening energy. Screaming children, playful laughter, and all mingled, creating a symphony of impending doom. Veronica turned on her heels, the resolve shattering, and bolted forward without thinking. She pushed through the darkness, feeling her way along the shelves, desperate and determined to find Mia. The walls around her closed in, echoing with the phantom joy that twisted into terror. Then she saw it. A shimmer at the end of the aisle. Was it light? She dashed forward, weaving through a maze of abandoned products. But as she neared, the glow flickered, revealing a doorway that seemed all too familiar. The cartoon ghost from the candy section smiled menacingly above it, the mouth twisted as though it sneered. "Welcome back." Veronica's breath lodged in her throat. The sight twisted something deep inside her. She could feel the looming presence behind her, gathering strength as if feeding off her fear. Fate wove a dark tapestry, every strand pulling her toward that door, pulling her into a choice she never wanted to make. What lay on the other side? Would she find her daughter, or was it an invitation to the very heart of the horror that engulfed them? In that moment, she knew, stepping through that door might very well seal their fate. Would it be the doorway to Mia or to despair? As she stood teetering on the brink, she felt a chilling breath on her neck, and the whispers grew louder, merging into a single terrifying reality. "And then they said, you should have stayed away." Caught between two paths, Veronica took a deep breath, and plunged forward. The moment Veronica crossed the threshold, the world changed. What felt like summer air thickened into something colder, more oppressive, as if ice crystals began to form on her skin. She blinked, struggling to adjust to the dim light that flickered within the walls of the small, metal enclosure. It was a storage room, barely lit, with boxes stacked high and shadows creeping across the floor like live creatures. They danced, flitting about with intent, mocking her as she stood there, heart racing. That a door slid shut behind her with an ominous clang, sealing her inside. The laughter faded to a low murmur, but the lingering essence of it clung to the air like smoke. "Mia," she whispered, dread clawing at her throat. It echoed back to her, an ominous chorus that made her skin prickle. "I am the quiet." Her phone buzzed again, its weak light flashing through the cardboard shadows. She fumbled for it, but the screen remained dark. The battery had died. A sick feeling settled in her stomach. She was trapped, cut off from everything familiar. "Mommy!" The voice rang out again, more insistent this time, almost pleading. She stumbled toward the sound, desperation igniting her fears. "Where are you, Mia?" The boxes around her towered like tombstones, ominous and forbidding. She pulled at one, struggling to push it aside. The sound echoed, hollow and wrong. "You shouldn't have come here," whispered a voice close by, so close it made her freeze. Her body stiffened, goosebumps rising. "Mia," she called again, trying to sound brave, but it came out as a hiccup, then she saw it, a small shadow darting beneath a table. The movement was swift, too swift, and her heart pounded harder. She dropped to her knees, her palms pressed against the cold, gritty floor. Mia. But instead of her daughter, an array of flickering lights lit up around her, an old TV turned on, static crackling into the silence. On the flickering screen appeared the clown from the toy aisle, and its lips curled into a sinister grin, amusement glinting in its painted eyes. "Welcome back," it taunted, the voice drenching with mock glee. Veronica recoiled, her instincts screaming at her to flee, but panic rooted her in place. "Save the child, or lose yourself," it continued, dark amusement dripping from every word, that S when she noticed the floor blood-red paint dripping from the boxes, pooling near her feet. With every second, it began forming shapes, grotesque outlines almost resembling children. Veronica's heart raced again, a primal fear igniting deep within her. The laughter echoed back, more chilling than before, whispering promises of safety, freedom, but it was a lie wrapped in sweet poison. The shadows moved, alive and twisting, trying to mime a dance but instead creating a macabre spectacle. Veronica squeezed her eyes shut, taking deep breaths to keep from succumbing to terror. When she opened them, the clown's image was gone, but the TV flickered again, projecting distorted images of happy families, their smiles too wide, eyes hollow. "What a lovely place to play," it hissed, and the sound ripped through her like glass. Suddenly, all went quiet. The air felt thick. Shadows hesitated, and a single voice sliced through the silence, as if someone stood beside her, whispering secrets meant only for her. "You must choose." Veronica felt the walls collapse around her, crushing her spirit, each word stealing her breath. She thought of Mia. She could not surrender. She had to save her. With every ounce of strength, she lunged forward, pushing through the weight of despair that held her back, and she began searching through the dark boxes. Each one she opened revealed remnants of lost things: a teddy bear with one eye, doll clothing stained with something dark, a broken carousel. Memories of lost children. Then it hit her, like a slap to the face. The store was not an innocent playground. It was a trap. An insidious web woven with despair, and somewhere in its depths was her daughter. "Mommy. Please." That desperate cry squirmed through her heart, galvanizing her. "Coming, baby." She screamed, the words tumbling forth, filled with raw urgency. Then she heard a door creaking open. A dim light beckoned as she sprinted for the sound, ready to fight whatever dark force sought to keep her from Mia, but as she neared the flickering door, she hesitated. Was it a way out, or another trap? Only one thought burned in her mind: either she finds Mia now, or they would both be consumed by the darkness. Adrenaline coursed through her as she reached for the handle. It was then she felt it, a cold hand gripping her shoulder from behind. "Stay with us forever." The voice dripped with malice, and her blood turned to ice. The door beckoned her forward, but was it toward salvation or doom? As she turned, faced with a choice they couldn't escape, she realized it was never just about Mia, it was about seeing who lived and who was lost in the carnival of shadows, and just like that, the darkness laughed. Veronica's heart raced as the voice echoed in her mind, mingling with the chilling laughter that clawed at her sanity. She swung around, the cold hand still clutching her shoulder, and faced the source of that malignant voice. Shadows writhed and twisted behind her, their forms shifting, unfurling like smoke. "Let go!" she shrieked, slapping at the icy grip. The hand seemed to dissolve into the darkness, but the voice remained there, lingering, a specter whispering horrors just below the surface of her thoughts. The shadows surged forward, a wave of suffocating blackness that swallowed every hint of light. "What do you want?" Veronica gasped, trying to cope with the panic tightening around her chest. She could feel her breath quickening, her pulse echoing in her ears. She had to keep focused, to remember Mia's cries. But the voices of dozens of children echoed in the room, a chorus of despair that drowned out everything else. In that moment of chaos, she felt the ground shift beneath her. The blood-like paint seemed to pulse, alive with malice. It hardened into a slick surface that caught her foot, nearly sending her crashing to the floor. She steadied herself, her mind racing. "No!" she shouted defiantly at the darkness. "You will not take us." She barreled toward the creaking door, summoning her last reserves of strength. The grip of despair released slightly, the shadows momentarily withdrawing as they recoiled from her defiance. With a single powerful pull, she yanked the door open and stumbled into the light beyond, but the moment she crossed the threshold, her hope shattered. The light was blinding, casting everything in an unbearable whiteness that left her momentarily disoriented. She shielded her eyes with trembling hands, gaze darting to find Mia, but the room was empty. Stripped bare of everything familiar, the walls around her seemed to pulse, breathing, alive. "Mia!" she cried, voice cracking. The room echoed back her plea, a cruel mimicry that chilled her to the bone. She stepped further, feeling as if the very air was closing in around her. Then she saw the remnants of a birthday party balloons floating sorrowfully near the ceiling, a half-eaten cake resting on tattered cardboard. A small table was laid out for invisible guests, crystal-clear glasses filled with a thick, dark substance that reminded her far too much of blood. "Mia." The name teetered on her lips as she scanned the room, dread making her fingers tremble. The echo of happy voices once filled with laughter now felt like a torture, drowning her in past festivities. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to dispel the images that enveloped her like a noose. "Focus," she told herself. Then, always lurking, that voice emerged again from the depths of her mind. "You can hear them. They're waiting to play with you. Shut up." She clutched her head, trying to shake the taunting echoes. "I'm not playing." "Yes, you are," the voice hummed sweetly, laced with darkness. "You're already part of the game. You just have to choose." Veronica felt the floor beneath her shift once more. The ground pulsed alive, and the children's laughter joyous, innocent changed to cries of anguish, each note twisting in pain. It filled her with panic. She had to find Mia before it was too late. Just as she was about to scream again, she glimpsed Mia huddled in a corner, clutching a doll that stared back at her with hollow eyes. Relief mixed with dread surged through her. "Mia!" she shouted, rushing toward her daughter, but as she neared, Mia's figure blurred, the shadow of her form flickering like static on a broken screen. Her heart sank as she reached out, but the doll slipped away, dissolving into the air. "Mia, please, don't leave me." The walls began to shake, and a cacophony of distorted laughter rang in her ears. Darkness from the edges of the room crept in, eager to swallow her whole. Desperation clawed at her throat. "Mommy's here. I'm coming for you." Suddenly, everything froze. The laughter, the shadows, the very air. And then a whisper touched her ear. "Choose wisely." A spotlight flickered on. In its beam stood dark figures, laughter returning with unholy vigor, surrounding her and pushing her toward the center of the room. Each face was a mask of happiness, their eyes gleaming with hunger. Veronica's heart sank as realization crept in, puncturing her hope. She was standing at a doorway between two worlds. Her sweat-soaked skin chilled at what lingered behind her versus what awaited ahead. As the darkness surged forward, ready to consume her, she had one final choice to make: plunge into the chaos behind or step into the terrifying unknown right in front of her. But a sharp cry pulled her back. "Mommy!" And before she could think to move, the room shuddered like a living entity about to consume her next. The shadows twisted, swirling into grotesque shapes that danced as the disembodied laughter echoed. Panic surged within Veronica, a tidal wave of dread crashing over her. "Mia!" she screamed, the name a plea and a promise, but the darkness swallowed her voice, the figures around her morphed, their smiles twisting inwards. She felt a push at her back, a cold wind nudging her towards the light despite the terror drumming at her chest. It was like stepping onto a precipice, her heart drumming a frantic beat. With trembling breath, she stepped forward, feeling the ground ripple beneath her feet like a living beast. "Mia!" Another shriek tore from her throat as she plunged into the blinding glow, forcing herself to break free from the shadows that threatened to cage her. The brightness enveloped her, though it felt wrong, as if the light were not just illuminating, but perverting reality. Then, everything went dark again. She was back where she started, in the eerily empty room, but something had shifted. The remnants of the party lay untouched, frozen in time. No longer just decorations, they now felt accusatory, each silently screaming the horror of what had been lost. She could still hear the echoes, the children, their laughter, their cries swirling in a tormenting dance around her mind. Mia. Desperation sharpened her voice into a weapon, cutting through the cacophony of sorrowful wails. There had to be a way out, a way to find her daughter before the shadows consumed them both. As if summoned by her despair, the chilling gemstones of laughter returned, mocking her cries. Each note punctured her resolve, driving spikes of fear deep into her gut. "You can't save her, you know," the sinister voice returned, wrapping around her thoughts like a snake, squeezing tighter and tighter. "Stop!" she shouted, squeezing her eyes shut against the overwhelming sense of hopelessness. Breathing heavily, she opened them once again in the flickering light, determined to push through the swirling darkness. "I will save her." With renewed fervor, she turned back to the room, searching for any sign of Mia. As her eyes adjusted, shapes began to coalesce out of the swirling shadows, faces, remnants of the children who had played there, their features stretching grotesquely in and out of focus. They were staring at her, their gaping mouths forming a silent chorus, urging her further inside. Heart racing, she followed. But it was too late to turn back. The air grew thick and suffocating as more figures joined in, a tight circle closing in on her. The joy once shimmering in the air was now an ominous shroud, their pleasure twisted with malice. "Mia!" she screamed, but her voice was snatched away, drowned by the growling chorus of roars that swallowed her whole. Then she saw it, a light blooming from the center of the gathering crowd. It flickered like a candle, and amidst the crowd, she recognized the familiar shape, her daughter. "Mommy!" Mia exclaimed, reaching for her. Veronica felt her heart soar even as terror gripped her. "I'm here!" she cried, desperation fueling her as she pushed against the throng of shadows. But as she reached out, the circle of children began to shift as one, twisting and writhing, dragging Mia backward, pulling her into the enveloping darkness. "No!" Veronica lunged forward, panic striking like a blade through her heart. Suddenly, the darkness exploded, a shriek of torment spiraling into a final echo of laughter, casting shadows that twisted into grotesque forms. A vision of the birthday party returned, balloons floating above, now bearing twisted smiles, sinister whispers echoing from their surfaces. "Take her place, or join the game." Those words hung in the air, dense and suffocating. Veronica's breath hitched, realization twisting in her gut. To save Mia, she had to become one of them. The thought clawed at her sanity. With her heart pounding against her chest, she wrestled with the darkness. The choice hung heavy in the air, the room vibrating with anticipation. "What is it going to be?" the voice taunted, an echo of her own fears. And just as she opened her mouth to respond, everything shattered once again as the room collapsed into shadows. What flickered in the dark, though? A small, flickering light, waiting for an answer. The shadows coiled tighter, grasping at her thoughts, leaving only whispers of confusion in their wake. Veronica stood paralyzed, suspended between a decision that felt as heavy as lead: take Mia's place or be consumed by the darkness forever. As the last fragments of her will swirled into the void, the flickering light beckoned her with a hope that felt dangerously fragile. Mia, the name slipped through her lips, a soft plea laced with trembling terror. She was losing time. Each second felt like a century, each heartbeat echoing louder in the deafening silence. Behind her, the crowd of twisted children began to chant a low, droning murmur that seeped into her bones. "Join us, join us." Their voices harmonized, threading a sickly melody of laughter through her mind. The sound twisted into something both inviting and horrifying, like an ethereal promise wrapped in danger. Veronica shook her head, forced herself to breathe. She had to focus, had to fight back the insidious voices that threatened to envelop her. "No. I want to become one of you." She felt strength seep back into her bones, ignited by the memory of Mia's innocent face, by all the love she'd poured into her daughter. The light flickered again, pulsing like a heart, drawing her gaze. In its glow, she could see the contours of the shadows more than just darkness. They were memories twisted into reflections of children who had once played here, now trapped in eternal glee. "Help us!" a child's voice pierced through her, fractured and desperate. "We didn't want this," her heart twisted at the plea. These children weren't just figments, they were souls bound by a sinister game, forever yearning for release. The urgency bubbled inside Veronica, igniting a force she didn't know she possessed. "I can help you," she called out, each word a lifeline in the chaos. The shadows paused, the echo of laughs fading into a tense silence. For a breath that felt infinite, the atmosphere grew still, as if the world itself was waiting. She stepped closer to the light, extending her hand towards the flickering glow that offered hope. "Tell me how," she demanded. "I want to save Mia and you. I don't want to become a monster." Suddenly, the shadows writhed violently, responding to her defiance. Veronica gasped as they spiraled around her, anger and malice radiating from the swirling mass. A voice rose, harsh and guttural, drowning out her cries. "You know the rules. One must take the place of another to break free." "No!" she screamed, the sound filled with anguish as she felt the air grow heavy, thickening like a shroud. Panic flooded her thoughts once more. The walls of the room began to ripple, collapsing inward, trapping her amidst the chaos. The light flickered, dimming, and with it, Mia's outline grew fainter, slipping away. Veronica's heart thudded violently. As darkness pulled at her, chilling fingers reaching for her, she felt the despair washing over her like a cold tide. Would she really have to give in? As she grappled with the burgeoning dread, a sudden spark of clarity cut through the murky haze. "No!" she cried out defiantly, locking eyes with the one child whose gaze shone brighter than the others. "We'll find another way. I won't lose my daughter." But the darkness surged in a final, furious explosion. Whispers turned to screams, shadows clawing at her skin. The twisted faces of the lost children circled her, their gazes piercing in their need, their desire for freedom. "Mia!" she screamed once more, the name a beacon against the storm of darkness. But even as she shouted, she felt the pull of the dark tide, dragging her towards an abyss where her choices would cease. Just when she thought she would be consumed, the flickering light intensified, revealing a shimmering path through the shadows. It was brief, dazzling, but it felt like a new hope. Veronica took a step forward. What would it cost her to follow it? Veronica lunged toward the light, heart hammering, fueled by desperation. The shimmering path beckoned like a lifeline, but the shadows writhed in retaliation. They surged forward, threatening to swallow her whole. Just as she crossed the threshold into luminosity, a piercing chill darted through her, as if the darkness clawed at her very soul, dragging her back into the depths. "Don't look back," she whispered to herself, forcing her gaze forward, as she felt the cold tendrils of despair snap at her heels. The glow enveloped her completely, revealing a realm that felt simultaneously familiar and nightmarish. It was a twisted mirror of her memories, pulsating fields where laughter had once echoed, but now they were tainted with tragedy. Each corner she turned revealed moments ripped from her past, warped and distorted into a macabre gallery. "Mia!" she called again, the sound hollow as it echoed back to her. The grip of the shadows weakened just enough for echoes of hope to flicker. Faces of the lost children shifted around her, eyes glimmering with a dark hunger. "Come play," they whispered, their voices a sweet poison. "We wait for you." The urge to succumb pulsed within her, but she fought it. "I need to find Mia. Help me!" she shouted, dissecting the swirling darkness. The children's faces morphed, expressions torn between longing and despair. Their former innocence was replaced by etched fears, and Veronica recognized their pain, her own mirrored in countless expressions. As she pressed deeper into the glow, she found herself in a clearing where the air shimmered with an ethereal mist. Golden light bathed everything in a surreal hue. In the center stood a towering structure, an ornate, crumbling altar etched with symbols that pulsed ominously. It radiated an energy she felt in her bones, both seductive and sinister. The shadows crawled to the edges of the clearing, coiling like snakes, keeping her on edge. The children's voices merged into a dissonant symphony of cries. "Sacrifice," they chanted. "One for one, this isn't the way." Veronica cried out, trembling as the realization struck this was the heart of the darkness. She understood now, this was the source of the game. They needed a soul to break free. But it wouldn't be her daughters that paid the price. Suddenly, the pulsing light flickered again, dimming as the altar beckoned. It felt like an invitation, but also a warning. Standing still meant being consumed, yet moving forward felt like drawing a noose around her neck. "Mia!" she shouted, spinning in place. "Where are you?" A tear streamed down her cheek, reflecting a fervent prayer that her daughter was still safe, somewhere beyond this torment. Just then, the whispering changed. The children seized upon her fear, voices growing louder until it became deafening. "You're losing her!" they screamed, a multitude of furious childlike tones merging, each vying for her attention. The altar flickered again, a violent surge illuminating the distraught faces around her, their eyes now glowing with an unsettling intensity. It felt as if they were watching her every choice, yet somehow, the shadows were listening, too. Overwhelmed, Veronica felt herself teetering on the edge of despair. She needed to think clearly, to break through this hellish cycle that threatened to hollow her out. What if it's not just about sacrifice? She murmured, an idea creeping upon her like a thief in the night. What if the game could be turned against them? Just then, a soft, luminous figure appeared behind the altar, an echo of Mia's innocent spirit, glowing with a vibrant light that contrasted the shadows. "Mama!" The voice was faint but resonated with warmth. Veronica's heart surged. Courage ignited within her as she focused on the shimmering outline. "I'll find a way, Mia. I'll bring you home." But what would it take to shatter the chains that bound them? Before she could contemplate further, a rush of shadows engulfed the clearing, and the altar's cries reached a fever pitch. "Run," the children warned. "Before it's too late." A cold grip closed around her heart. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was a race against time. With Mia's image burning bright in her mind, Veronica surged forward, uncertain of where the path might lead but knowing that she had to fight. "Together!" she yelled, determination reigniting her spirit. The shadows roared in fury as she sped toward the altar, propelled by the need to confront the very fears that plagued her. In the eye of the storm, the darkness lurked, bending the rules of their twisted fable, but Veronica was ready to rewrite their fate. Would the cost of their freedom bind her soul forever, or would salvation be within reach? The shadows writhed as Veronica surged toward the altar, each step driven by a fierce determination that ignited her very spirit. The echo of her daughter's soft voice became her battle cry, "Mommy, I'm here." "Mia!" she screamed, her voice piercing the chaos like a beacon. She could feel the darkness pushing back, engulfing her, but the fiery glow of hope fueled her movement. The altar loomed before her, its hallowed surface etched with tales of despair and longing. It pulsed with dark desires yet glimmered with the potential for rebirth. "I won't sacrifice you," she yelled, shaking off the icy grip of fear. The altar trembled, the shadows writhing in response to her defiance. "You want a soul? Take mine. I'd rather burn than let Mia be a part of this nightmare." The wind howled, swirling shadows spiraled into agonized forms, and the children surrounding her shrieked in unison, "You cannot. One must be offered." Their voices crashed against her resolve, a cacophony of anguish that tugged at the corners of her sanity. Yet, amidst the chaos, the luminous outline of Mia's spirit shimmered, illuminating the darkness. "Mama! Free us!" it called again, urging from beyond the veil. Each flicker of the light weaved through the painful cries, penetrating the evil that threatened to consume everything Veronica held dear. In that moment, she realized the truth. It wasn't about simply choosing a soul to save her daughter, it was about breaking the chains that bound them all together. Together. She shouted again, this time louder, fiercer. We defeat you together. With newfound conviction, she lunged toward the altar, arms wide, channeling every piece of love she felt as both a mother and a warrior standing against the darkness. The altar trembled, shadows swirling violently, cutting through the air like knives. But Veronica held her ground, feeling the warmth of Mia's spirit merge with her own, a radiant energy coursing through their bond, a connection untainted by evil. Suddenly, the light erupted, cascading over the altar, and the cacophony transformed into a harmonious melody that resonated through every shadow-flecked corner of the room. One candle extinguished, another ignited, the shadows chanted, their voices quivering, the weight of despair buckling beneath the brilliance of hope. Mia! Veronica cried, feeling the light pulse more intensely, a fiery sun reclaiming the moonlit night. She could see the shadows recoiling, twisting and howling in frustration. You have no power over us. As she spoke those words, the shadows began to fracture. The walls around her pulsed, memories pouring out, flickering images of lost children grasping for light, yearning for something beyond cruelty and torment. They surged toward her, their faces now shining with gentle longing rather than horror. Mama! We're here. Mia's voice sang out one last time, bright and clear. But in that moment, it sounded as if the children were saying it too collectively, triumphantly, echoing her own resolve. The air swirled, the dance of light and dark crashing against one another until it erupted into a brilliance that shattered the very fabric of their cursed existence. Tendrils of shadow dissolved, floating away like dust in the wind. The room quivered and echoed with fading laughter. No. No more. The voices cried as they faded, losing their grip. In the luminous wave, Veronica felt the burdens lift, the chains binding the lost children to anguish crumbled beneath her determination. Tears streamed down her face, mixed with laughter as she felt the warmth of freedom fill the space. Each flicker of light whispered of hope, washing away the scars of despair. Mia! She felt a tug at her heart, gentle yet powerful. Instantly, the light swirled once more, and it enveloped her, lifting her into its embrace. When the brightness finally settled, she stood at the entrance of the store, bathed in grainy golden light. The surroundings had changed, the haunting shadows and the sinister laughter were gone. Mama, and there was Mia, standing just a few feet away, bright-eyed and radiant, blinking in wonder. The immense relief carved into Veronica's chest freed her. She rushed to Mia, pulling her into a tight embrace. I thought I lost you. I knew you'd find me, Mia whispered, her voice warm and safe. The night, once a suffocating blanket of fear, felt alive again. They both stepped outside, the cool night air wrapping around them tenderly. As they walked together, hand in hand, exchanging smiles filled with unspoken promises, they turned back one last time to glance at the Target store. From inside, a faint light flickered, as if the darkness were truly gone, and the store stood solemnly, a memorial for all the cries that had echoed there, but also a shrine for hope, now restored. Together, Veronica whispered, feeling Mia's warmth beside her, realizing they had stepped into a new chapter. No longer haunted, they could finally venture into a world brimming with life, love, and endless possibilities. And as they walked away, a new dawn painted the horizon, signaling brighter days ahead. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending, we want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the light together.